Hey, 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 you know what time it is. Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back, lovelies. Welcome to Storytime with Chris. Like I always say, you do not have to watch these stories when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max and relaxing, chillaxing, study time, break time, in between time, any time that you have time to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, and adventure, and many, many more in between. And we are back with The Castle of Llyr by Lloyd Alexander. We're on chapter 13. And we are just breezing through these books, actually, as we continue to go. And if you haven't seen my more recent video from yesterday, I explained my absence. I was not feeling well. I had a really bad migraine on Wednesday that went into Thursday. So I needed to take the time to take care of myself so that I can still perform for you all and bring you magic, entertainment, and wonder. I need to be able to ensure that I'm doing okay in order for me to be able to entertain you. So I do appreciate everybody's patience. I thank you for all my friends that have been checking up on me. You know who you are and you are appreciated. So you didn't come to hear me talk about my day. You came to hear a story. So let's get started. Which, by the way, I do not own the music in the background. All right. Chapter 13. The Ladder. Why, they're gone! Taran quickly flashed the golden light about the chamber. Every one of them!
Yes, yes, Gurgi cried. No more shriekings and squeakings.
I can't say I'm unhappy about it, added the bard. I get along well enough with mice, and I've always been fond of birds, but when you put the two together, I'd just as soon avoid them.
The bats may prove our best friends and surest guides, Taran said. Rune has struck on something. The bats have found a way out. If we can only discover it, we can follow them.
Quite so, answered the bard, making a wry face. First thing would be to turn into bats ourselves. Then I dare say we should have no difficulties.
Taran strode hurriedly from one end of the chamber to the other. He played the bauble's light over the wall, sending the beams upward to the sloping ceiling of rock, scanning each crevice and outcropping, but saw only a few shallow niches from which some ancient stone had fallen. Again and again he swept the golden light around the cave. A faint shadowy line seemed traced amid the stones high above him. He stepped back and studied it carefully. The shadow deepened, and Taran realized and marked a narrow ledge, a flaw in the rock. There it is, he called, holding the bauble as steadily as his trembling hands allowed. There! You can barely make it out. The wall curves and hides it, but see where the rock seems to dip and break. Amazing, cried Rune. Astonishing. It's a passage, rightly enough. The bats have gone through it. Do you think we can? Setting the golden sphere on the ground, Taran strode to the rock face and sought to raise himself by grasping the slight ripples of stone. But the wall was too sheer. His hands slipped and clutched vainly for support, and he fell back before he had been able to climb his own height. Gurgi, too, attempted to scale the smooth surface. For all his agility, he did little better than Taran, and he sank down, puffing and moaning.
Just as I said, glumly remarked Fluter, all we need is a pair of wings.
Taran had not ceased to stare at the high passageway, taunting him with the promise of freedom beyond his reach. We cannot climb the wall, he said, frowning, but there still may be hope. His eyes turned from the distant ledge to the companions, then back again. A rope would not help us, even if we had one. There's no means of securing it. But a ladder...
Exactly what we need, said Fluter. But unless you're prepared to build one on the spot, we shouldn't waste our time grieving over something we don't have, clearly.
We could build a ladder, Taran said quietly. Yes, I should have seen it at once.
What? Cried the bard. A flam is clever, but you're going far beyond me.
We can do it, replied Taran, and need seek no further. We ourselves are the ladder.
Great Beelard, shouted Fluter, clapping his hands. Of course! We shall climb on each other's shoulders.
He ran to the wall and measured it with a glance.
Still too high, he said, shaking his head. Even the topmost man would reach it with little to spare.
But he would reach it nevertheless, insisted Taran. It's our only escape.
His only escape, corrected the bard. Whoever climbs out will shorten our ladder by that much. Our choice is hardly better than what Glue gave us, he added. Only one of us can save himself.
Taran nodded. It may be that he can drop a vine down to the others, he said. In that way... He stopped. Glue's voice filtered into the chamber.
Is all well in there? Called the giant. It's going splendidly out here. I've made everything ready. I hope you're not too upset. Would one of you mind stepping forward? Don't tell me which. I don't want to know. I'm as sorry as you are.
Taran turned quickly to the Prince of Mona. I know their hearts, and I speak for my companions. Our choice is made. It is too late to hope to save us. Try to make your way to Caer Calor. Should Caw find you, he will guide you there. I don't intend leaving anyone behind, replied Rune. This is your choice. It is not mine. I shall not... Prince Rune, Taran said firmly. Did you not put yourself under my orders? The stone had begun to grate in the passageway, and Taran could hear Glue's frantic snuffling. This too you must take, he said, pressing the bauble into Rune's reluctant hand. It is rightfully Eilonwy's, and it is yours, and you who shall give it back to her. He turned his eyes away. May it shine brightly on your wedding day. Gurgi had clambered to the shoulders of the bard, who braced himself against the wall. Rune still hesitated. Taran seized him by the collar of his jacket and dragged him forward. Taran climbed to Fflewddir's back, then to Gurgi's. The human ladder swayed dangerously. Under the weight of the companions, the bard cried for Rune to run and hurry. Taran felt Rune's hands grasp at him, then slip. From below came Gurgi's labored breathing. Taran clutched Rune's belt and heaved upward as one knee than the other was thrust upon his shoulders. The passage is too far, gasped Rune. Stand up, Taran cried. Steady! You're nearly there. With a last effort, he forced himself to rise as high as he could. Rune scrambled at the ledge. Suddenly, Taran's burden was lifted. Farewell, Prince of Mona, he called as Rune swung himself to the narrow outcropping and plunged into the passage. Fflewddir cried a warning, and Taran felt himself falling. Dazed and breathless on the stones, he tried to regain his feet. It was utterly dark. He staggered against the bard, who pulled him from what Taran realized was the entry to the chamber. A rush of chill air told Taran that Glue had pushed the rock aside, and he sensed, rather than saw, a darker shadow thrust into the opening. Taran unsheathed his blade and swung wildly. It struck something solid.
Ow! Cried Glue. You mustn't do that!
The arm pulled back suddenly. Taran heard Fflewddir draw his blade. Gurgi had scuttled to Taran's side and was throwing stones as fast as he could pick them up. We must stand against him now, Taran cried. We shall see whether he's as great a coward as he is a liar. Hurry! Give him no chance to shut us in again. Swords raised. The companions flung themselves out of the chamber. Somewhere, Taran knew, Glue towered above them, but in the blackness he dared not strike with his weapon, fearful of harming Gurgi or Fflewddir stumbling along next to him.
You're spoiling it all, wailed Glue. I shall have to catch one of you myself. Why are you making me do this? I thought you understood. I thought you wanted to help me.
Wind whistled over Taran's head as Glue snatched at him. He threw himself down among the sharp rocks. To one side he heard Fflewddir shout, Great Beelern, the little monster can see better in the dark than we can. Until now the companions had clung together, but Taran's sudden movement had torn him away from the others. He groped to rejoin them, and at the same time to escape Glue's frantic lunges. He tumbled against a pile of stones that gave way with a clatter and went sliding into a stream of noisome liquid. Glue wailed in resounding despair.
Now you've done it. You upset my potion. Stop it. Stop it. You're making a mess of everything.
What must have been Glue's foot came stamping down nearly on top of him as Taran lashed out with his sword. The blade rebounded in his hand, but Glue yelled horribly. Above Taran, an almost invisible shadow seemed to be hopping on one leg. The bard was right. Taran thought in terror the greatest risk from Glue lay in being trampled. The ground shook under the giant's feet, and Taran leaped blindly from the sound. Next thing he knew, he fell with a splash into one of the pools dotting the cavern. He thrashed wildly and flung out his arms, seeking a handhold on the rocky edge. The water glittered with a cold, pale light. As Taran scrambled out, bright, luminous droplets clung to his drenched garments, his face, hands, and hair. Escape for him was hopeless now. The glow would betray him wherever he sought refuge. Run! Taran shouted to the companions. Let Glue follow me! In one stride, the giant was at the pool. By the light of his own dripping body, Taran could make out the huge shape. He thrust forward with his blade. The eager hand of Glue brushed it aside.
Please, please, I beg of you, cried Glue. Don't make things worse than they are. Even now I shall have to boil my potion again. Have you no consideration, no thought for anyone else?
He's delusional. Delusional is the word to describe the type of person that Glue is. He is very delusional because what he's doing is a wrong thing, yet he thinks that it's okay. We'll talk about that another time. The giant reached to seize him. Taran raised his sword high above his head in a last futile gesture of defense. Golden rays burst around him, brilliant as noonday. With a scream of pain, Glue clapped his hands to his eyes. "The light!" he shrieked. "Stop the light!" Screaming and roaring, the giant covered his head with his arms. His ear-splitting bellows rang through the cave. The stone icicles trembled and crashed to earth. The crystals split and showered Taran with fragments. Suddenly, Glue was no longer standing, but stretched full length, half covered by the shards, lying motionless where a falling crystal had glanced off his head. Taran, still dazzled, leapt to his feet. At the entrance to the chamber stood Prince Rune, the bauble blazing in his hand. And that is where we are going to end for today. And I thank you all so very much for joining me today. As always, I always appreciate the support. If you haven't already done so, go to the YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe. Only takes less than 30 seconds. I know I'm overdue to upload episodes, but with me being under the weather last week, I needed to take a break, but I promise you they will be up soon. Just be patient with me. I love you all, and I will see you next time. See ya.